The city of Flint is no stranger to trouble, and its people have been through everything from extreme poverty to being labeled the most dangerous city in America. However, Flint's latest crisis, the water emergency, may be the worst of all. It's a problem that needs to be dealt with now, and will have effects that will last a lifetime. Since 2002, the city has been under the burden of nearly $30 million in debt. To alleviate the weight of so much owed money, the first emergency financial manager was appointed in the city of Flint. Alicia Paxton has the story.
The original emergency manager law was passed in 1988, created to help cities in financial distress. It allows a single person to be assigned into a city and can take over all decisions made in hopes of getting communities out from under money problems. When a community is assigned an emergency manager, all democracy can in effect be thrown out, and elected officials become powerless. There have been 13 cities in Michigan under the effects of this law, including Flint. Since 2002, Flint has had 6 different managers in command.
After the choice to go with KWA, the DWSD agreement was on borrowed time. DWSD, the Detroit Water and Sewerage Department, is one of the largest water and sewer systems in the U.S. today, and they also have been the source of Flint's water for over 50 years. Knowing that the pipeline would not be done until 2016, way after the contract was finished, Flint knew they needed a temporary water source. It was decided in March of 2014 that they would be switching to Flint River for the meantime. Flint water customers noticed a switch within hours, from things like the new smell, discoloration, and even the taste. And through the summer, the new problems continued. About a month later, on October 13th, the water system's biggest user, General Motors, stopped using the water to make cars. GM decided to cut ties with Flint Water and bring in an outside source. If the water wasn't good enough to make cars, how could it be drinkable for humans?
A basic need for everyday life. We use it for drinking, cooking, cleaning, and bathing. With Michigan being the Great Lakes state, we take it for granted. But what if that basic necessity was taken away from you? TTHM, also known as trihalomethanes, are formed as a byproduct when chlorine is used to disinfect water for drinking. Could you walk us through a little bit about how we got to this point?
The city of Detroit, who we'd been a customer of for over 40 years, they terminated our contract.
We got off the Detroit water, and we're now getting the water from the Flint River. Why can't we go back to the Detroit water until the pipeline's built?
Well, that would be an option. I mean, it's technically possible. The pipes are still connected.
This letter in my hand is what pushed Flint families to the brink. To most, it felt like a slap in the face. On February 2nd, letters like this were delivered in mailboxes all across Flint. In the letter, the city acknowledged the suffering and discontent from its customers and assured them that they were working hard to bring closure. The city had reduced its TTHM levels and had officially been found in compliance with federal levels.
The TTHM problem was only the tinder to a roaring fire that the next issue ignited. After nearly a year-long struggle for the people of Flint, a new problem blindsided them, and they were thrown deeper into chaos. Less than 3 weeks after Flint's water was declared safe and in compliance with the Safe Water Act, news leaked that researchers at Virginia Tech University had found traces of lead within Flint's water. The water found in some homes was 3 times the federal limit of lead within water. It's the corrosive Flint River that released the lead into the water. Lead is not something meant for the human body. It's a neurotoxin that is especially dangerous to infants and young children, as it can permanently cause brain damage and can stunt growth.
While the water emergency was officially declared by the county, for families and especially children across Flint, the emergency started a long time ago. Jillian Berger and Haley Thompson tell us more.
There are no real signs of lead poisoning, but as time goes by and the children of Flint get older, the exposed kids can get anemia, have slowed bone growth, loss of their developmental skills, and many other terrifying repercussions.
Lead, it is the most damning thing you can do to a kid. It affects their entire life course trajectory. It lowers their IQ. It creates behavior problems. It decreases their lifetime earnings. It's bad.
Months had passed from when the lead was first discovered to when it became an issue, and homes are not the only places that have been affected.
Home. It's the place you feel safest at, no matter what happens. But for people living in Flint, this is no longer the case.
For many of these families, finding alternate sources of water is difficult with a tight budget and an empty wallet. Thankfully, charities have filled that gap. Without them, thousands would still be without clean water or resources to get them drinkable water. Alex Wendell and Bailey Talaska have this story.
While the people of Flint were struggling with the lead problem, Many charities and individuals came together to help out. Many Flint locals have been dealing with this problem for a long time and desperately needed the relief. So far, hundreds of thousands of bottles of water have been donated, and the numbers are climbing so much that the schools aren't even counting anymore. With all the problems that people of Flint have come to deal with, some still choose to stay positive.
The biggest issue of this whole emergency is that no one seemed to be listening. Jordan Bruns tells us why.
Flint lives matter!
The people of Flint have had enough. Many have been campaigning since the initial switch from Detroit Water. The people of Flint, much like you and I, depend on the basic need of water, many of whom have gone with undrinkable water since the switchover. What's worse is that the people of Flint are having to pay more for water they can't use. For some, the actions that the government has taken are just not enough. The outcry of the people lasted for months. They were waiting for someone to listen.
After countless hours, days, and weeks of protests, the people spending day and night in the hot and cold to fight back finally won a small victory.
For 174 days, the community waited desperately for government officials to switch back to the Detroit water system. But is the switchback enough to fix the problems that it caused?
Finally, after months of struggle, the dominoes began to fall and someone had taken the blame. On October 19th, DEQ Director Dan Wyant reassigned Lyanne Schechter-Smith, the chief of the DEQ's Drinking Water Office. The Michigan DEQ had been using the wrong standards for the water going through the system. Instead of treating the water for a city of 100,000, the size of Flint, the levels were set for only a city of 50,000, which left out crucial corrosion controls that would have stopped the lead found in old pipes from leaching into the drinking water. On October 19th, Howard Croft resigned as the director of the Flint Department of Public Works. He was the chief staff member overseeing the Flint Water Project. Then the issue became national. At the urging of state politicians, the U.S. EPA started involvement November 10th, as they announced they'll be conducting a full review on the crisis. The results will not be complete until the fall of next year. Following a few days later, November 13th, families in Flint finally fought back. The first lawsuit was filed against Governor Snyder and the chiefs of staff for the health problems caused by the emergency. And now, we look towards what is in store for the future of Flint. Jordan Hancock tells us more.
For the time being, the future of Flint's water plan is a coin toss. At this moment, what may or may not come before us is incredibly bleak. No one can agree on where this all started or who's responsible. Was it the local government's fault? The DEQ's fault? The state government? Or is it the federal government? Who's at fault?
No one was asked. Citizens weren't asked. The council wasn't asked. Was this a good decision? And almost immediately, boil water advisories, TTHMs, and then the cream de cream led everybody.
And I asked, Flint City officials, everybody who had a hand involved, is that what you want for your children and your grandchildren? Because that's what it comes down to. This is what we're leaving, our legacy for the children.
Children with lead poisoning won't be helped until after their blood tests are examined, and by then the stages of their illness may already be severe.
We tell them to wear their helmet because we don't want them to get in our ICU upstairs with a head injury, because we want Flint kids to grow up to be amazing. We don't want any additional barriers in their way, and this is just a potential additional barrier to their lifelong achievement.
And the children in Flint have enough to worry about already. The people have spoken up and taken action. They filed a class action lawsuit. A class action lawsuit could mean serious legal trouble for everyone involved, and it will prolong the effects of this disastrous event.
Filters aren't a fix!
Everything that's been done before now hasn't solved the problem. Flint is left with only one option.
I, Karen W. Weaver, Mayor of the City of Flint, declare a state of emergency in the City of Flint. This was effective December 14th, 2015. We need state and federal assistance for the people to feel comfortable. We need some help.
After all this time has passed and all these events have taken place, the water is still poison to the Flint community. The lead remains, the threat still looms, the fear lingers. The water is still undrinkable.
With no resolution in sight, it's not quite certain just how long this crisis will continue. A new administration could tighten things down in the Vehicle City, but for the time being, Flint is still in the midst of a problem that will define themselves for years, maybe even decades to come.